You set foot on foreign soil. Only this land isn't ruled by any country or government. In this land we celebrate music. In this land we celebrate games. In this land we celebrate those who compose video game music. Welcome to the VG Embassy. Welcome and thanks for tuning in to another episode of the VG Embassy. This is a show centered around video game music and the amazing online community of fans and podcasters that enjoy it. My name's Ed, and on each episode I'll take the role of a prime VGM minister and invite a guest VG ambassador onto the show to share with us their own video game music culture. Or I may share a part of my culture on a solo show. Friends, countrymen, etc., etc. This is episode 82, Masters of VGM, and this show almost did not happen. It's been an extremely challenging month for me here at the old VG Embassy. Extremely stressful time at work. As some of you might know, I kind of run the IT network for my town that I live in, and we got hacked. Yep, big ransomware attack. So I've been working dozens and dozens of hours of overtime and just kind of burning myself out. It's been not fun at all. And I was really upset because I was planning on doing a kind of a grand Masters of VGM show with a guest, and unfortunately none of it came to pass. I was working so hard that by the time I got home, I was not in any sort of condition mentally or physically to be able to put a podcast together. Things are slowing down, and it's the very, very end of the month, so I felt like I had enough strength in me to put together a quick show, because I wanted to be a part of this. I wanted to, give shouts out to all of the other video game music podcasts that are doing this big June Masters of VGM event. I didn't want to go the entire month of June without releasing any sort of VG Embassy content either. Some scheduling conflicts have prevented us from putting out an Embassy exclusive during the month, and obviously the primary show was delayed quite a bit as well. So here we are. I'm going to try to get this out by the last day of June. If it ends up coming out within the first couple days of July, I apologize. I hope everybody will still consider this part of Masters of VGM month. So, what is Masters of VGM? Well, this is an event put together primarily by Bedroth from the VGM Very Good Music podcast. And the question went out on Discord, what's your Mount Rushmore of video game music composers? Who are your top 4 musicians, composers, etc. that you appreciate the most? Who's tip of the top? And we decided to do a large podcast event where all of the participating entities would put out a podcast talking about their favorite video game music composers. But Ed, you might say, those of you who remember all of my shows and follow me closely, you already did 2 shows about your favorite composers, episodes 32 and 37, on which you discussed your 24 top composers. Well, yes, I did. And of course, all of the composers focused on this show will have already appeared in those 2. For those of you new to the VG Embassy, if you are listening to me just kind of getting into different VGM podcasts during Masters of VGM month, go and take a look back at episodes 32 and 37, where I take a real deep dive into, like I said, 24 of my favorite composers. Tons and tons of awesome music. I tried to share some less well-known but really awesome music from all of the composers. because a lot of them are very super well known, and my favorite thing to do on my show is to kind of dig up the hidden gems that you might not know too much about. So there's a lot of really good stuff there that you can enjoy. So here I am, 50 episodes later, episode 82, sharing the cream of the crop of those 24. Who are the top 4 composers? Well, and these are in no particular order either. There is one who is, I would consider my favorite. Fans of the show will obviously know who that is. But these other 3, I'm not going to put in any particular order. I'll say they're all tied for second place. How's that? Again, if you've been listening to my show, I don't think any of these will be a very big surprise to any of you. Let's start off with one of my favorite video game music soundtracks of all time, Mother 3. This is composed by Shogo Sakai. The game was released on the Game Boy Advance in 2006, and one of my favorite tunes from this soundtrack is called To Sunshine Forest. Let's go. That was To Sunshine Forest from Mother 3, released on the Game Boy Advance in 2006, composed by Shogo Sakai. Shogo Sakai is just an incredible, versatile composer, and he has this kind of friendly tone, but it's a mature friendly tone. Like, he does compose a lot of Kirby music, and he's composed a lot of the Smash Brothers stuff, and he can create light, airy tunes, but they also have kind of a heaviness about them, and I think that's why I love it so much, and that really perfectly encompassed the mood of Mother 3 as well. The Mother 3 soundtrack was immense. 275 pieces of music, ranging from short little stingers to complex compositions like this, over 3 hours of music, and normally in a video game music soundtrack or a game rip, the music would loop twice. So my personal Mother 3 soundtrack is over 6 hours long, and I used to have an hour drive to and from work, and I worked at this job for about 7 years. So I would put the Mother 3 soundtrack on, and it would take me about 3 days of driving 2 hours a day to get through the entire soundtrack. And I loved the music so much that by the time the soundtrack was done, on day 4, I would go back to song 1 and I would listen to it all over again. There's so much variation in it, and there's so much difference between how the soundtrack sounds at the beginning of it, during the beginning of the game, to the end of it, that it made me want to listen to the beginning of it all over again, just because the tone was so different. Just based on this one soundtrack alone, Shogo Sakai really cemented himself as one of my top video game music composers ever. I've gone on to listen to a lot of the other things he's done as well, especially Kirby and the Rainbow Curse, which feels very Mother 3-ish to me. There's a lot of kind of hard rockin' tunes, like the battle themes for Mother 3. There's a lot of very up and atom heroic tunes like this soundtrack has as well. But he had the freedom to have streaming audio, and he wasn't limited to the Game Boy Advance sound system. So the instrumentation and the production is fantastic. And I feel like, if Mother 3 had ever had a sequel, if there's ever a Mother 4 or a remake, that his soundtrack would absolutely shine if he were to have, more freedom to do that. I love this song because it's got a lot of the elements of different Mother 3 music in it. There's kind of happy little town theme, there's some jazziness and some bluesiness going on there, maybe even a little bit of kind of like dancey music in there as well. It doesn't really touch on a lot of the hard rock and metal stuff that you might hear in the battle music for this game, but I do feel it's a pretty good representation of what Sakai was going for, kind of on the whole, from this soundtrack. He also used leitmotif a lot. There are a few different themes that permeate this soundtrack, and he'll take the love theme or the pig mask theme and just create entirely different compositional pieces based on 2 or 3 melodies. Enough to make it listenable, and you never get tired of those melodies because they're just so well written and so catchy. So, carving that first face into the mountain, Mr. Shogo Sakai. Let's turn things around a little bit. VG Embassy might be my primary podcast, but I do have another one called The Arcane Machine, in which myself and my friend Justin from XVGM Radio get together and talk about industrial music and goth music and dark dance music. So, as you can tell, I not only love the heroic Kirby-style video game music, but I have a darker side as well, and the darker side is pretty strong. I'm pretty heavily into the dark side of the Force. So, the Silent Hill soundtracks have long time been one of my favorite series of soundtracks ever. Huge difference from Mother 3, of course. So I guess you know where I'm going with this one. Next face on my Mount Rushmore is none other than Akira Yamaoka. One of my favorite songs that he composed for the Silent Hill series comes from Silent Hill 2. This was released on the PS2 and Xbox in 2001. The song is called Alone in the Town. Don't get lost. What I love so much about Alone in the Town is that Yamaoka seems to draw inspiration from Angelo Badalamenti's Twin Peaks theme, with that low, twangy, plucked bass and the kind of twinkly bell synth above it, and then adding that really gritty kind of a hip-hop brushed blues beat over it. Man, it's such a cool sound, and it draws you right into the atmosphere of the series. One of my guilty pleasures. So I have a VR headset, a Quest 2, and when you put it on, you can kind of choose like the environment that you want to sit in while you're looking through your menus and choosing which game to pick. And you can download user-created environments too for this menu. And so somebody created the bowling alley from Silent Hill 2, and it's a really faithful recreation, and it's slightly updated in terms of, graphic fidelity, but this song plays in the background. So what I do sometimes is I'll just sit cross-legged on the floor. I'll remove all the menus, like swipe them away, and just kind of sit in this Silent Hill environment and just listen to this song. And it's absolutely amazing. It's the most immersive way into one of my favorite video game series. I just can't describe the kind of feeling, like all the outside world just goes away and I just kind of enjoy being inside my favorite video game. And Akira Yamaoka's music has so much to do with that. If it was just the bowling alley by itself, it would be cool, but this music just absolutely brings it home. Yamaoka became one of my favorite composers long ago, even from the first Silent Hill soundtrack. A friend of mine was really into like noise. He was a drummer and he loved to just record himself drumming. Later went on to be part of a pretty big metal band called Sea of Bones, if anyone is familiar with them. So he would like to record himself drumming and then put different effects on it and make it really kind of noisy and stuff, and it would sound a lot like the really intense stuff from the first Silent Hill soundtrack. So he turned me onto it before I had even played the game, and I was like, wow, this is really good, but it was a little not cohesive enough for me. Like, I liked the industrial noise, but couldn't really get into it like listening to it by itself. Subsequent Silent Hill soundtracks got more cohesive. The music became there was more melody to it, and the songs didn't just kind of drone on and on with nothing but noise. So at that point, I really started to love these tunes. Silent Hill 2 in both game and music was just like the perfect storm of amazingness for me. A deep, kind of thoughtful plot, really creepy graphics, a soundtrack to die for. For me, Akira Yamaoka was inseparable from the Silent Hill series and became part of why I loved the game so much. Even the games that I didn't enjoy playing, I still would buy the soundtrack for and absolutely love them. And I'm not a big physical media collector. I would prefer just to have digital everything, but I own every single Silent Hill soundtrack that he's worked on, even the international variants, if there are more than one. So yeah, there was no doubt in my mind that he would be up there on Mount Rushmore next to Shogo Sakai, kind of looking at each other like, how does this dude love both of us at the same time? Nowadays, Akira Yamaoka's done some work with Bloober Team, some work on Lollipop Chainsaw, Sine Mora, which I played from on the My Favorite Composers episode. I would love to see him return to Silent Hill 2, but he seems to be working on games that are inspired by Silent Hill, which is cool. I think, if Konami ever came back to their senses and wanted to do some more legit Silent Hill stuff, if they could somehow convince him to come back, that would be one of my dreams come true. Alright, well, let's move on to number 3 on my mountain. Again, kind of going in a completely different direction here. This is the main menu from V-Rally, released on the Game Boy Color in 1998. Some really old school chiptune stuff, composed by the man, the myth, the legend, Alberto Jose Gonzalez. We'll be right back. Yeah, kind of a lesser known, but a really, really good tune that was the main menu from V-Rally, composed by Alberto Jose Gonzalez, released on the Game Boy Color in 1998. Now, look, I know Alberto's music is generally a little more uplifting than this. It's got what I kind of coined the phrase the Alberto signature bounce, which seems to have permeated through lots of VGM podcasts, which I really like. Kind of like a reggae-ish, kind of a dub bounce. This one is much more electro and dancey and still pretty dark at the same time, which I thought was really good. He's got a really, really good mastery of arpeggio, and that's one of the reasons why I love Western chip music composers so much, from the demo scene to video game music. If you can use arpeggios in creative ways, you instantly have my heart. And this one's good. This one's got straight up, square wave musical tones with the arpeggios operating as chords in the background, and that is fun. I was not aware of Gonzalez's music until well into my video game music podcasting days. It was probably maybe early-ish in the Pixel Tunes radio days. Somebody requested Turok Dinosaur Hunter on the Game Boy, one of the tunes from that game that happened to be composed by him, and Mike and I were both blown away by how good it was. And even that sounded probably more like V-Rally and not his more traditional stuff. And as we kind of dove deeper into his musical career, we both fell in love with all of his really, really awesome tunes. So I'd say he's probably the composer I've listened to the most without actually having played most of the games he's composed for. Because the games some of them were decent, but it was a lot of like PAL-only releases, a lot of European stuff, a lot of licensed games based on properties that never came out in North America, so I wasn't really familiar with them. So, I just hang out and I enjoy the music, which everybody should. If you're not an Alberto Jose Gonzalez fan, or you're not familiar with his tunes, there's hundreds of amazing pieces of music written by him. Currently, he's at Abbey Light Studios. He was always kind of an artist and a programmer, as well as a game composer throughout his tenures in video games. Now he's doing less music and doing more programming and art. So, still in the industry, which I love. Probably one of the reasons why I do enjoy his music so much is because he cites the following composer as one of his major influences. Does anybody want to hazard a guess as to what my top favorite video game music composer of all time is? Anyone? Anyone? Yes, you're all completely right. Tim Follin. What else would it be? So here's one of my favorite tunes from him. This is Gambit's theme from Spider-Man and the X-Men and Arcade's Revenge, released on the SNES in 1992. Composed, I'm pretty sure this was primarily composed by Tim. Geoff Follin also had credits on this soundtrack as well, his brother. So sit back, relax, place a bucket under your chin so when your face melts off, it doesn't get into the furniture. I don't even know how to come back from a song like that. I imagine that when the soundtrack to Spider-Man and the X-Men and Arcade's Revenge came out on the SNES, People listen to this music, video game music composers in particular, listen to this music, and a good portion of them probably went, oh my god, the bar has just been raised, I need to step up my game. And the other half went, what the hell, I quit. I'm just flabbergasted by the quality of the music that Tim and Geoff Follin put out on any system that they are put in front of, be it the Time Track soundtrack on the Genesis, this on the SNES, Pictionary's Silver Surfer on the NES, Gauntlet on the Amiga, Ghouls and Ghosts on the Commodore 64. They take the strengths of each of those sound chips and mold them like Play-Doh and create these absolutely amazing sound sets and incredible compositions. And from the most simple 3-channel square wave producing chips to something like this with 8 channels of pretty decent quality samples, and just make them sound like a band playing out of your computer monitor speakers. I guess if I were to be able to ask Tim questions at any point, and believe me, I've tried a couple times, I would ask him why. Why, when you could have put in music with half the effort and it would still be considered more than adequate for the video game that you were working on, why did you put 120% of your soul into each and every song you wrote? And I'd want to know if it was something that he was just compelled to do, like whether it was just a compulsion to create incredible music like this, whether he always felt the need that he needed to create music like this in order to get more work in the industry, whether he was looking to get out of the industry and he felt like this was his portfolio. Like, I want to know the motivation. It's always bothered me, and nobody's ever asked him that question before, or at least not in a way that elicited an answer that would satisfy me. Anyways, if you're not aware of Tim Follin, I don't know, here's your introduction. Like, if you still have ears, go and listen to more of his stuff. This one is a great example of his music because it's kind of dancey, it's kind of prog rock, it's got some like big band stuff in there, there's a little bit of swing. This is probably my favorite song from the Spider-Man X-Men soundtrack, especially with that like cymbal sweep. I've never heard a sound like that come out of the SNES. I've actually never heard a sound like that anywhere else before. It's a cymbal crash, but he bent it and swept it up and then down again. And the sample was high enough quality that it kept its integrity from very low to very high. So I have no idea how much data that took up compared to the other samples. You need a pretty high quality sample to be able to bend from that low to that high and still make it sound good. Yeah, just the instruments that he would choose, whether he was making them out of square waves or sampling them for the Amiga and the SNES, the sound drivers that were programmed primarily by either his brother Mike or his longtime programming partner Steve Ruddy, just allowed him to shine with every single project he touched. So, obviously, the shining crown jewel on my Mount Rushmore here. Not to cast any sort of shadows on the other 3 composers. They are all very near and dear to my heart. But I think if it hadn't been for Tim Follin, I wouldn't have gotten so much into video game music on a whole and tried to learn so much about the technology used in creating this music. Believe it or not, Tim Follin is still in the video game industry. He stopped composing quite a while ago, but now he's working on kind of throwback full motion video like whodunit mystery type games, and they're getting some decent reviews, so you should go check them out. They're on Steam, and they're called Contradiction and At Dead of Night. And of the two, At Dead of Night seems to be getting a lot of recognition and has very good user reviews on Steam, which is awesome. All right, well, this was a quick and fun show. I appreciate you guys being patient with me this month as I just kind of have to focus more on work in this whole work-life balance thing. And I do regret that it took so much away from my ability to podcast, both in terms of time and emotional availability for it. But this was fun. This was a fun way to get back into the groove. And, hopefully we will be coming out with some more full-length episodes soon. I do remember that I announced that Geoff was going to join me on this show. Emily's availability and mine just didn't work out very well. I'm almost recording this on a whim. I just decided that I would have enough in me to put the show together yesterday and record it today and hopefully edit it over the next couple of days. And so they will be on my show very soon. We will figure out another fun topic to visit instead. All right, so I want to give shouts out to all of the other shows that have participated in Masters of VGM. If you want to find out more about these shows, you can head over to mastersofvgm.com, or you can search for the hashtag Masters of VGM on Twitter. All of the podcasts that do have Twitter handles will be using that hashtag when they release their shows over the course of this month. And those podcasts are A VGM Journey, Antlegion Spell Music, Bar Silence, BG Mania, KVGM The Last Wave, Nintendo Domain, Nerd Noise Radio, Osam du Cartucho, Pixel Beat, Pixelated Audio, ReVGM, Rhythm and Pixels, Rock Out With Your Card Out, Shujin Academy, The Sound Test, Super Sound Boy, Very Good Music of VGM Podcast, VGM Fight Club, VG Jam, VG Emporium, Volt Supreme Synth VGM Dream Stream Machine, The Waveback Podcast, and X VGM Radio. I'm sure you're familiar with a few of those, either by members who are patrons of my show, or just through your discovery of VGM podcasts on your own. Speaking of being patrons of my show, I want to shout out all of my lovely patrons without which this show would not be possible. Nobody on our tourist level right now. Lots of people have upgraded to VG Emissary, which is great. That means you all get to listen to our Embassy exclusive show, which comes out every month. And at our VG Emissary tier, we have Cameron Childs from the Magyar Band, Chris Murray, Chris Myers, Chris Steenerson, Gannon11 from the Norwalk Gamer Symphony Orchestra, Jordan Werma, Kyle Kroll, The Dyad, and Daryl Bowers, aka The Last Weekend. At our audio attaché level, Cameron Werma, Carlos from the Heroes 3 podcast, and Scott McElhone. Our special agent tier, Geoff, Ryan Steele, Volt Supreme from Volt Supreme Synth VGM Dream Stream Machine, and our VG Ambassador tier, Frankly Zappa, and the patron saint of VGM podcasts, Alex the Messenger, host of A VGM Journey. Alright guys, so please go out and check out the rest of the Masters of VGM event. I'd love to hear your thoughts on my favorite composers, and, let me know if there's any other podcasts that you've discovered through the Masters of VGM event. Let me know if you're a first-time listener to the VG Embassy. That would be really, really cool. If you are a first-time listener, this is kind of the standard solo show format, but most of my shows do have a special guest and a different special guest on each episode, kind of sharing with me, as I said at the beginning of the show, part of their own video game music culture. All right, so hopefully within the next month I will have another episode out. Until then, stay cool, stay safe, keep listening to Awesome VGM. Bye, everyone.